Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Bestiary Boys, where we take a deep dive into monster manuals and of course bestiaries. Today, Joey, what the hell are we talking about?
Ant people.
Ant people. We've made it to the insectoid part of the bestiary. And I guess before we get into the quote, before we get into the art, I think it's important to talk about the little beginning section of the insectoids, as they're called in Dragonbane, because I found it pretty interesting how they're clearly not of this world. They're the most alien of the creatures, you know. Of course, insects look very alien. And so because of that, they're viewed as pests, just as we view insects as pests. But what I found the most interesting is that it's pretty clear that they are not of this world, that they came through a portal from another world. For what reason, the chronicler doesn't really know. However, she hypothesizes that maybe it was the demons who brought them over to join their army against the dragons. But
yeah, and that makes the most sense, really. The demons probably saw how they were maybe hive-minded to a degree and thought we can control that.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And they're, chitinous. They're strange looking like the demons, so
yeah, they're
maybe
tough.
Maybe they saw like some kind of kinship there. But let's move on to ant people, shall we? So we are greeted by this excellent quote as usual. If you want to get rid of an ant people colony, go all out to get the queen. Take out the regent and the rest of the ant people will scatter to the wind, lost and adrift by Egmund, not Edmund, but Egmund Hilt, military strategist. So just like ants in real life, we kill the queen to kill the entire colony. That's the gist. But let's check out this art real quick before we get into what the hell this thing's about. So really cool art as usual. I know we say that every week, but I guess there's one thing to note, and you're going to get more into it when we talk about the stat block. But yeah, they're not ant-sized. They're small. Category small, meaning I'm guessing like halfling, dwarf,
halfling, mallard.
Yeah. And I really like in this artwork how they demonstrated that, in case you didn't know, because he's walking two little bugs, this ant figure. So he's walking these two little beetles like dogs, but also he's wearing armor. So that's another tell, I think, that will help communicate.
The ornate armor is cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's kind of strange, too, considering ants have a chitinous exoskeleton, so they have armor upon armor. But he's also has this really cool dagger-like thing that looks like it's made of another ant's claw or something.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, dig the art as always. It's in the context of, I don't know, it's telling a story. Like what is this ant guy doing walking his two? Are these like hounds that guard the
that's what I'm wondering.
Or what?
I mean, they're like aphids of some kind, which ants in real life also use. They keep them as pets, basically. So I guess this ant person's doing the same thing. I really like the effect on the eyes of it, where you could tell it has
the faceted,
what's it called?
Faceted eyes. Yeah, it looks awesome. Cool. All right. Well, moving on to what the hell are these ant people? Well, it all starts with. So my colleagues and I were invited to stay with Queen Fizwiz Ozbaz. So you'll notice that all of the names of these ant people are very odd. They're very insect-like, I guess, if insects could speak. Very reminiscent of insect sounds, I guess. But we will learn, though, that they don't communicate with language. Well, spoken language, I should say. They're telepathically linked within the family or the colony, whatever you want to call it. They're all these individuals are connected as long as they're within 10 kilometers of the regent, and they share each other's sensory impressions. So they act very similar to ants on Earth. They didn't decide to kind of tweak anything too much, but they expanded it to turn it into a creature. Other notes here, sometimes that groups of warriors are sometimes dispatched on scouting missions to strike at potential threats. And workers may also join patrols tasked with making things more difficult for the enemy, for example, by setting traps or destroying cave entrances. So I do like the idea, though, that they have to communicate with gestures if it's someone who's not an ant person. And so one of the adventure seeds gets into that. But before we get into all that stuff, Joey, how do these things attack?
in really unique ways, actually. The ant people's attack variety is kind of neat. So they can do a painful bite. It's a hard. They bite hard onto their victim, inflicting D8 slashing damage and injecting the victim with a paralyzing poison, potency 9. So anything that lowers the party's action economy, as it's called in most games, that's always deadly. They have a sword of bronze, which is a D10 slashing sandwich.
A D10 slashing sandwich.
Yeah, it's a foot long.
I like it.
But yeah, it's a bronze sword that deals D10 slashing damage. They have this really cool thing here, wrestling attack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep. The creature pounces on an enemy, wrapping its arms and legs around the victim, which it has 6 of total. So that's a lot of limbs to wrestle with. It'll wrestle it to the ground. The attack inflicts D8 bludgeoning damage and an additional D8 whenever it is the victim's turn. The victim cannot move or perform actions that require body movement except trying to break free, which requires a strength roll action. Others can help, though.
That's crazy because I feel like most attacks like this, so far, every single attack, even if it doesn't feel, well, I guess the first two are definitely damage based, but you think wrestling attack would be more of like a, hey, I'm pinning you down, I'm trying to stop you from attacking, but you're suffering damage as well.
Next, we have the electrocution attack.
This was unexpected.
Very unexpected. The ant creature quickly rubs its antenna together and creates an electric charge. The creature then shocks an opponent who suffers D8 damage. Armor has no effect and drops anything held in their hands.
Cool. So they're just like, yeah, they tase them basically. And again, I like all these attacks too that ignore armor too, because that can often be a something that a lot of people go toward. They always assume like, oh, I'm just going to get the biggest, the baddest armor, and I'm going to be untouchable. But thankfully, Free League has balanced a lot of their monsters with attacks that ignore armor.
And I just Googled this real quick. I just Googled ants that conduct electricity because I was wondering if there's any real world relation. While it's commonly believed that certain ant species like crazy ants can conduct electricity, this is a misconception. Their bodies don't conduct electricity in a way that allows them to effectively use it like a source of power. So I guess at some point, for some reason, people thought ants did this.
Maybe that's why Free League decided to throw it in there. They're like, hey, these are fantasy ant people. We are going to make them electric.
Yeah, they do. So here's another really cool attack, though. They have confusing dance. The 4-legged ant creature scurries in circles around an opponent. Round and round it dances, and the victim must make a will roll with a bane, not an action, that's important, to avoid being dazed. So I do know that just like how we commonly know that bees kind of do dances to communicate, so do ants, certain species of ants. I don't think they all do, but that's kind of a neat little attack. It's just a huge variety. It can bite you, it could wrestle you, it could stab you with a sword, it can electrocute you, it can dance around you. And then here's the last.
If you had, well, real quick, if you were to send ant people against your party, what kind of dance would they do?
They would do, so anyone who might remember, there was an episode of Dexter's Laboratory. Where Dexter and his sister Dee Dee, they get shrunk down and they go to an ant colony, and Dee Dee teaches them a dance. So the dance from that episode, that's the dance I would have them do.
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
Definitely not the electric slide. Or no, maybe it should be the electric slide so they can combine their dance moves with electrocution. But last, certainly not least, not so much an attack, but a buff. They have the Healing Kiss, which is odd because they don't have lips. So I know.
That is odd. What is an ant kiss like?
I would have called this like Healing Peck or something like that. The ant creature uses its mandibles. Nibble? Yeah, maybe nibble.
Nibble? Like a little...
Yeah, or Healing Pinch.
Yeah, Healing Pinch. There you go.
To clean the wounds of one of its family members participating in the fight. The wounded ant creature recovers up to D8 HP. So basically, if you slaughter one of the elderly ant people and they weren't fighting, they can't eat because it says it's one of its family members participating in the fight. So just kill the ants that aren't even attacking you. They can't heal them. By rules is written, they can't go and heal helpless ants. So attack them first.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
last night's game
kill the women and children first, basically.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Last night's game is still rubbing off. It's still there for me. It's
Yeah. That was quite a twist.
Yeah, that's all of its attacks. It's got a ferocity of 1, so it's only going once per turn. It's small. Here's the cool thing, though, of course. It has 2 armor, which armor is actually a pretty big deal because any little bit of armor helps. And then they can move pretty quickly. 14 movement is good. 8 HP is nothing to write home about, but that's literally like about what your average player has too. So, and then they have coordinated. Ant people live close together and develop an almost supernatural ability to coordinate their actions. Because of this, ant people may choose their initiative cards freely before any cards are drawn instead of drawing randomly, as long as they do not fight alone. That is kind of busted.
Why do you say it's busted?
Well, if they may choose their initiative cards, it doesn't say draw. It says choose.
Yeah, that means
choose.
Well, right. So there's a 1 to 10. They can pick whatever number they want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, if they could just make themselves go first every turn, as long as there's more than one of them, that's. Imagine if the players could do that.
I wonder if there's a heroic ability that allows you to choose your initiative.
There is. I forget what it's called, but there is.
It's possible.
But, oh, yeah, I guess it is possible. But all right. That's what they all can do. Jason, why don't you tell us what they have presented for us as far as how to use these things?
All right. So we got a random encounter and an adventure seed. We'll start with a random encounter. Another crazy ant name, Zipst the Antling. He's angrily run off from his family after being denied a second helping of waxworms for the 12th time. He is so pissed. These waxworms are so delicious. A group of ant creatures takes to the surface to find the runaway and catches up with him just as the ever-hungry Zipst makes himself known to the player characters in their camp or on the road, and the ant creatures, upon viewing the scene, come to the conclusion that Zipst has been captured or is under attack. Here we go about talking about the verbal communication. So it is impossible. So to avoid combat, the player characters must either drop their weapons and raise their arms in the air or explain using gestures, which gives them a bane on persuasion. So communication can be incredibly difficult in this situation, unless maybe they have a bunch of waxworms that they're, bringing those along and whatever the hell those are. Yeah, that's the random encounter. So that's a setup. But Adventure Seed, so this one is a little different because this isn't necessarily adversarial because the players are running into, here's another crazy name. I can't even pronounce that. It's just a bunch of consonants. He's a lonely ant worker wandering the forest, downcast and confused. So if they make an effort to communicate with the worker, though, they eventually learn that he is the last of his family. A monster laid waste to their home and slew the queen. So Zizzt is now looking for a new family, a new life. If the player characters agree to take him under their wing, he's going to promise them whatever treasures are in that lair. However, it asks a few questions. This is for the GM, of course. Is the monster still there? If so, what kind of beast is it? And how will the world react to player characters traveling around with an ant creature, which is something that I've thought about often, especially in the last campaign when you had a goblin with you. Yeah. You also had a frog person with you.
Yep.
And so those are not your common kin. I don't think the frog person, I really made a big deal out of it, but I was made sure to, like, the goblins are a little iffy. Yeah. So you guys kept them pretty much, covered up for the most part. But I know we're coming up on Path of Glory, and one of the players wants to be a cat person. So I don't feel like that's quite as out there. At least I don't think so. But I can imagine an ant person being clearly very alien and
I could see somebody fearing an ant person and
for sure
being curious about a cat folk, but definitely fearful. I like the little random encounter a lot. To be fair, Zipst has patience. It was the 12th time when he finally snapped. And then if I was running this random encounter, if there was a bard in the group, I would take away the Bane and make it a normal roll for a gestured persuasion if they kind of narrated how you asked me what kind of dance would you have them do if they could, or especially if they got up and danced physically.
Not only that, but I would even argue that you could probably use a different skill for the bard. So something like
performance.
sleight of hand or performance or whatever to, convey that, because that may be better for them in the long run. But that's a good idea.
And the adventure seed is really cool.
Yeah, I like the first one's kind of it's like a misunderstanding almost. And then the second one is rather than combat focused, it's you're aiding this ant person to help them and perhaps defeat this this beast in the lair so you can get some treasure. But speaking of that, Joey, at your table, how do you think you'd be running ant people?
I really like the idea of the adventure seed, to be honest. Like, I think if it were left to my own thoughts and planning, I would have came up with something similar. It's always fun to take an alien creature and try to have the party become bonded with it rather than just trying to kill it or whatever it is.
Yeah, because you're subverting expectations. It's kind of reminiscent of when I saw District 9 the first time. I was like, wow, I actually feel for these prawns, especially the little one. It's like a little kid. It was great narrative work to convince me to actually care about a bug person that is fully CGI. So I could see that being a fun way and a good way to subvert the player's expectations versus just kill.
In use, I have used ant people in Dragonbane at the local game shop that I run at.
Is there a monster you haven't used in the bestiary yet? I feel like you've used all of them, except Ancient Dragon, I guess.
I haven't used Ancient Dragons. I haven't used... No, I did use the Brook Horse. You know what? Maybe not. I've run a lot of Dragonbane at the game store. Well, demons. There's a lot of demons I haven't used.
Yeah, which makes sense. Demons are rare and
Yeah, they're rare in endgame stuff. But in the game, they discovered the ant people's their ant holes. A chimera of all things in a mountain a little ways from it told them that the ant people stole like a treasure of his and he wanted it back. So they went in there and they just slaughtered them all. Got the treasure.
Of course they did.
Yeah. And of course, as it turned out, the ant people really didn't steal anything from the chimera. They slaughtered innocent people and they felt bad about it. I'll give my players credit. They felt really bad about that. So they went back and they talked about how they properly buried all of the ant people and this and that. And then later I brought ant people back into the picture. It was bad because the what do they call it? Pheromones, or because insects will give off like scents and stuff. They could actually smell the death of the other ant people still on them, like in their leather and in their cloth and stuff like that. So they were immediately attacked by them because they're like, "Ooh, you've killed us before."
I think what I would do is I would lean into the idea that these ant people or these insectoids in general came from another world. So maybe you get to the bottom of an ancient colony and you find a portal and you go through, or maybe it's a helpful kind of situation where you have a party member who's dying of a deadly poison and this ant person offers to take you to their realm where there's a cure, or maybe you're seeking an item, or who knows, there could be a million ways to do it. But I like the idea of transporting these players to a different world wherever these insectoids are coming from.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one.
It's like Stargate, but with ant people.
Exactly. Antgate. Antgate. Okay, cool. Well, moving on. We don't have any artwork yet, and I always say we don't have any, and then something comes in. So if something does come in, I will edit it in here. But just for future reference, if you guys want to submit anything to the channel, to the show, to be featured, you want to email us at archivistofadventure@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord server, link down below, and DM Joey or myself. And it doesn't have to be art. It can be, like I said, it could be a poem. It could be one of these cool quotes, something that would give an adventure idea to a player out there. It could be a short story. It could be another random encounter, adventure seed, a map. Who knows? Anything at all. So
it could be a sock puppet.
It could be a sock puppet. You heard it here first. So I guess that brings us to the end of Ant People, Joey. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about Ant People before we talk about what we're going to talk about next week?
Absolutely, because last episode you'd said that you hope it's not like A Bug's Life.
Oh, that's right. You had something prepped. Let's hear it.
Well, A Bug's Life is through and through. It's a D&D movie. It's a tabletop role-playing game movie very, very obviously. You have a queen, you have these brigands who are trying to steal this kingdom's resources, and one ant people says, I'm going to go to the big city, I'm going to find warrior bugs, and he brings back a circus troupe. So just imagine a game of D&D where they went to go find warriors and they brought back an entire party of bards, and that's who saves the day.
Sounds like a Mouse Ritter campaign too.
Not that I would know what that is.
Let us know. Do you want us to play Mouse Ritter on stream?
I want us to play a Mouse Ritter on stream.
Love to,
really
yeah.
bad. I want to play that game so bad.
I hear a lot of great things, so we'll do it.
I guess one last serious thing I would say about the ant people is that I actually cannot wait to talk about the other insectoids, because the ant people were really cool. And granted, for you and the viewers, I don't always read a lot ahead of time. With the ant people, I didn't, and so these are actually really cool and a nice surprise, because when I ran them, it was months ago, so I didn't remember any of this stuff.
Yeah, if you're someone like me and pretty much will run a campaign, if there's no ant people in the campaign, you don't run into them. So I've actually run even though I've run an entire campaign over like a year and a half, there's many of these creatures I haven't run at all. So it's great for me to finally go through them and you know, get the gears turning.
So do you remember what the next creature is on the list?
Basilisk.
Yeah.
Basilisk, which I have run in The Secret of the Dragon Emperor early on. So looking forward to that. Yeah, if you guys want to see how the Basilisk played out in our adventure, go check out episode, I don't know, man, it's pretty early, 6 or 7, something like that. But anyway, thanks for talking about ant people with me, Joey.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And thanks for watching and hanging out with us, and we will see you in the next one.